remember a significant moment in my life. I was walking down the sidewalk between my house and my best friend's house that was 3 houses down. We lived in the suburbs of Beaverton outside of Portland. And at that time, I was being smothered by the world. I was in middle school. And I was being smothered, okay, by temptations all around me for alcohol, for pornography, for smoking. I mean, it was just like being addicted to video games. I mean, Nintendo just came out. We were going bonkers on that, right? It was like I was being smothered. But when I was 8, I came to know the Lord. So there's this raging battle going on. I remember walking down the sidewalk, coming home from my friend's house, where I'd just been in the middle of darkness. I mean, that's what was at my friend's house. And I remember God speaking to me and putting a choice out in front of me. The way that you're facing right now isn't my way. And you're going to have to make a choice. You're not going to be able to keep doing this kind of stuff with your friends and follow me. So it's time for a choice. And this was God, by His Spirit, speaking to my heart, because He already lived in me and I already knew who He was. And I remember responding to Him. It was like, what verse? In Psalm 73, I think, says, when you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, I will seek. It was like we had that conversation. And I said, Lord, I don't want that. I don't want to live that way. I want to follow you. Now, get this, parents. You can't create a heart change like that in your children. You can lecture them about drugs. You can lecture them about sex. You can lecture them. You can tell them how bad it is. But I want to tell you, until they come under the conviction of the Holy Spirit and they have a relationship with God where they can respond to the truth that they're facing and they make their own choice, then there's not going to be a transformation. So that's why we have to figure out how we're moving from external motivation to internal motivation. And how can we facilitate that moment when your children are encountering truth and they're encountering God and they're responding to Him? How can we facilitate that? That's the goal. That has to be the goal for fulfilling His purpose and for having a real life change. And so you see back on foundations, the first one there, God has given parents the responsibility and authority to discipline and disciple their children. I hope you already have this clear in your mind. We're not going to spend a lot of time here. The Bible teaches and gives parents particular responsibilities and therefore authority, right? And these 2 areas to discipline and disciple. And you can see that, for example, in Ephesians 6:4, right? Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Those are the 2 things we're talking about, discipline and discipleship or instruction or teaching. So I hope you accept that's my responsibility. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. But what we're talking about, those 2 parts of life, discipline and discipleship, that need to be figured out, how do they work together? And that goes to this next part. Parenting should move from discipline to discipleship, from external motivation to internal motivation. So there's the chart. And on the furthest left side of the chart, of course, represents age 0, right? Beginning of life. And as the chart progresses, that's as the child grows up to 18 plus, when they're operating more independently. And while they're under your leadership, there will be discipleship and there will be discipline. But you see what happens here is discipline starts really high, because you end up kind of controlling pretty much everything that happens in their life. But that should go down, right? We don't control our children and create mature people. They have to learn to have self-control. Discipleship starts very low because, yes, you can sing to your children and tell your 3-month-old Bible stories, but you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a while before they get it. So at some point, as you disciple them, right, they learn to be self-motivated in the Lord. Now, do you see where the crossroad is? That is a confusing moment. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about that time where it's like, you really need discipline and you really need discipleship at the same time right now. And they are, at this point, of course, especially, they have come to realize somehow when they gain consciousness, they also think that they know everything. And they have come to the realization that you know nothing. And there's arguments. Every single thing is like argument. So how does all this come together? And so we're going to go through these 8 ways that you can help your children become self-motivated and deal with this kind of crossroads. But you have to remember that our goal is to get out of discipline. That is not the way you will get to the end of your mission. Discipline will not take you there. And some parents really don't get that. Like they try to discipline all the way out. It's not going to get transformation. What's going to get transformation is discipleship, which means you are helping your children learn how to follow Jesus. And if you're not doing that, then you're not going to get the result you're looking for, which is for them to know and love God.